By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Hog Style. I am your substitute host, Alex East, because, there's always a 50-50 shot that somebody's missing when the offseason starts. But that's not why you're here. You're here to hear fun, interesting Redskins news, and we've got a little something special for you. I want to introduce you to our friend Clint, who's been writing for our blog now for about a year. This whole season, Clint, you've been doing your analyses that you've been putting up there of like penalties and stuff. But you had a special thing you got to do. You got to go to the East-West Shrine game down in Florida. And
Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, yep.
And
Florida.
by the way, we paid for him first-class airfare from D.C. to Florida for this.
Yeah, right. We who can't pay for my one-star hotel room when I go to Richmond.
three drink maximum. That's all he had. Don't get no more.
And they're all water.
Steve's so cheap he wouldn't pay for gas.
I was very clear. And nobody ever accused me of not being blunt. We were going over expenses. I was like, look, man, gas is on you. This ain't the Washington Post.
I don't even know if they pay for gas anymore.
They probably don't.
It's rough times over there for our friends.
Oh my God! Wait a minute.
What?
News alert!
We
have a Redskins PR release. I just got a Korean pop band is coming to FedEx Field.
Some K-pop.
Yeah, it looks like it. BTS announces highly anticipated return to North America. For those of you out there who are 14-year-old girls who are listening to us right now, the show is on. Let's see. See, that'll make this obvious. May 27th, for those of you who either are 14 yourself or have daughters who are 14.
All right.
Remember that. Now, thank you.
And if you don't have daughters who are 14, stay away.
Yeah, please do.
Just do us a favor. I know you have that weird Sailor Moon outfit somewhere in your closet, but stay away.
The Redskins send us these things because they want us to promote them, but nobody ever does because nobody cares about stuff like K-pop, but we did it.
We did it. You're welcome, Redskins. Let's get back to something slightly more interesting and less creepy than K-pop.
There's nothing more creepy than K-pop.
All right, so the Shrine Bowl. Clint, I want you to kind of take us through your experience down there, because this is your first time ever doing something like this for us, and just kind of curious about how that went for you. But, just give us your overall take on how it went.
Okay.
And by the way, it's the first experience for us ever doing it also. Let's just be clear.
Well, the Shrine Bowl, yes, but we've done,
we've done other things.
Pre-seasons, and Jamal's gone to actual practices once or twice. So we've done things. We're not
just not this.
We're not virgins at this stuff.
Sorry, Clint, go ahead. I interrupted.
Well, I guess we're no longer Shrine Bowl virgins either.
There you go.
That is really creepy because the Shrine Bowl is about handicapped children, so that is very creepy.
Yeah, let's plug the Shrine Bowl. It is supported by the Shriners and the benefit of the Shriners Hospital.
Right, great cause.
And they do a lot of good work with kids, and they don't. It's like St. Jude's. They don't require the kids' family to be able to pay. Mm-hmm. They just take care of the kids. Didn't meet, but got to see Alex, who everybody probably has seen in one of the Shriner commercials. If you watch commercial television and don't stream or steal all your stuff, not accusing anyone. But he was there along with two other national spokespersons for this year. And they tend to be high school level students. And if anybody read the post today, Alex got into the Northwestern School of Journalism, which is a top 10 journalism school. And his desire is to be a sports broadcaster.
Yeah, I remember seeing him on the actual broadcast around just after halftime, I think it was.
Maybe we can have him on the Hog side next year.
Maybe.
He's interested in doing that. I believe he has his own YouTube channel and everything. So he's out there on social media, Instagram and all the stuff.
Let's talk some football, though.
Alrighty. So delving into the football, the Shrine Bowl is basically for what you would say is your day 3 type prospects, people that are going to go in the 4th to 7th round. These aren't your top tier players, obviously. A lot of them are from smaller schools. There was even several Division III players.
Right.
The one that struck out was the Division III player that stood out was, I believe, Kinsey from Barry University. He had several good catches, good separation, had a nice punt return. The rumor is that Georgia may invite him to their pro day so that the pro scouts can get a look at him. I don't believe he's going to be invited to the combine. A number of players that were there are already invited. Like Keith Washington, I believe, him and Mitchell, Mitchell Wilcox, I probably spent the most time talking to. They've already been informed that they're going to be invited. So basically after this game, they go into a training mode, nutrition, workouts to focus on being able to do the skills drills at the combine more effectively, that kind of stuff. The actual game, you can read the write-up on the Hogsty that I did about the game. You look on the front page, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the quarterbacks, I think James Morgan was probably the best quarterback there from what I saw. He's a big, tall kid from Green Bay, Wisconsin. He's a big Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers fan. He wore 4 in high school and 12 in college, I believe, how it worked out. Big, strong kid. He's a project. But
isn't 12 Aaron Rodgers' number?
Yes.
So he wore 4 and 12 both.
Favre,
yeah.
Yes.
It just I catch on fast.
Yes. No, he also wore it because he's a Tom Brady fan. That's a problem with I'm going to choose this jersey.
Well, Clint. Now the star of the second half seems to me was Malcolm Perry because he had the long run. Malcolm Perry is the quarterback at Navy. Now, what I'm wondering about is this kid just not an NFL quarterback, period, dot, the end, because of his arm? Because it seems like a runner like that would be maybe like a late round project in today's, NFL where the quarterbacks are running so much.
Well, I think, first thing is I'm 6'2", and I towered over the kid. He's got to be maybe 5'8", 5'9" at best. There
were a couple short quarterbacks in there, I noticed.
Listen, if he's 5'9", he towers over Kyler Murray. So...
I think he's going to be, I hate to use this euphemism, but a slash player. I think you line him up in the slot. I think maybe you try and get him into the return game. I think maybe you do the Transom Hill thing and you bring him in the Wildcat and let him run a play.
Gadget guy.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a gadget guy in the pros. I asked him if he applied for his waiver yet. No. He's scheduled to go to the it's not the officer candidate school like normal Marine officers, but it's the abbreviated version for the Naval Academy graduates because he's going to be a second lieutenant in the Marines.
And those waivers, by the way, aren't guaranteed.
No.
They do get declined sometimes. The policy goes back and forth. President Trump just changed it like last year. The Secretary of Defense changed it last year to allow waivers once again, and so it just depends on how the administration's feeling.
I think it's changed like 3 times in the last 5 years.
It has, because President Obama allowed waivers, and then President Trump killed it, and then I think that's how I lose track, but it goes back and forth, so it's not necessarily guaranteed that Perry's going to be able to play.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you think about Navy quarterbacks now; they're all, those kind of running quarterbacks that come out of Navy and Army.
It's because
run that triple option.
Yeah. And I'm always surprised that there's not more of those guys doing that Taysom Hill thing in the NFL by now. Such a copycat league. Why not grab a guy like that?
You want to know what's funny? Taysom isn't even the guy that started it. The who started it was Denard Robinson in Jacksonville. The only issue was he just wasn't good at it. And it's not his fault, but the Jacksonville didn't have that capability that Sean Payton had and that creativity. They just wanted to put him at running back. They just wanted to put him at quarterback, and that was it.
The honest
I thought the running back from Miami started that. And down in Miami, they started the Wildcat when Jimmy Johnson was there.
When Jimmy Johnson was there. Are you thinking about Ronnie Brown and Ricky Williams?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just the Wildcat. He just lined up and took direct snaps from the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Jamal, you're talking about this kind of do everything gadget guy.
Yeah,
That's
like
Denard
Denard Robinson was his
Right.
his positional name was actually like he was the first person ever to be called an offensive weapon. Like that was his position.
I mean, the
Right.
God's honest truth is that Tim Tebow should have been doing that. If he had
Yes.
wanted to
Oh,
do
yeah,
it,
yeah.
he would have still been in the NFL. Yeah. Instead, he's about to fail out of baseball. You know?
Right.
Well, at least he got married.
He
Congrats
did.
to
He
him.
married
got
like
married.
Miss Venezuela or something. You know, like some like Miss Universe.
South Africa. South
Oh, there
Africa.
you go. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so back to the Shrine Bowl. So that's Malcolm Perry. Who else stood out? Let's talk offensive line because that's a big deal. I'm trying to convince the Redskins universe that this is important. Nobody believes me. So let's talk about O-line.
The two guys that stood out to me were Eric Williams of Mississippi State. He played center of the game, really good. And I don't know how to say the guy's name. Is Owenigu.
Owenigu. Okay. Let's go with that as how you say it, just because it makes it easier.
Because to be perfectly honest, we may never hear his name again unless he's drafted by the Redskins.
Right, and
he's he's a guy that several on the blog like. He was a real road grader in the run game. He did okay in pass blocking. The guy that Robbie referred us to, Cameron Clark, was an injury scratch in the game.
And by Robbie, he means Robbie Duncan, former Hogstye colleague who I chit-chat with sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
Driscoll, the guy from Auburn, Jack Driscoll, was also in there a lot. Looked like he was pretty good. He primarily played right tackle.
Now the big name, of course, from the whole game was Runyon, right? I mean,
he was the big brand name, but honestly, I don't think he played as well as some of the other guys.
Really?
And when you see him standing next to his dad, he's not as big as his dad. They list him as like 6'4" or something, but he wasn't that much taller than me.
So he might not be a true tackle prospect then.
I think he's going to end up at guard at the next level.
Interesting. I mean, obviously the reasons they were pushing his brand out there, his father's high up in the NFL now as a management guy, so it's not surprising.
Yeah, he's the senior vice president for penalty enforcement and stuff.
Right.
We tried to because he's a name. We tried to get a one-on-one interview with him, but he was popular there and didn't work out. But certainly, I think he was probably the biggest name out of anybody there just because of his dad.
Yeah. One of the players who surprised me was Eli Wolf. He's a tight end.
He made a lot of big plays early, right?
Yeah, he had a great first quarter, kind of tapered off after that. I think he had one drop that should have been a catch.
Right.
But he definitely played more than Mitchell Wilcox and some of the other guys, and he seemed to have more bigger plays. He got better separation, was made himself available to the quarterback, I guess is a good phrase.
If I were to throw another tight end out there that in more of an H-back fullback type, it was the guy Parker Houston.
He's definitely an H-back guy.
Yeah, big guy, long hair, made that really nice touchdown catch where he just went up and got it above everybody. Yep.
Yeah, Benjamin Victor from Ohio State had a good catch like that. Took the interception away from Shaheem Carter from Alabama. Carter did not have a good game, in my opinion. He got burned 2 or 3 times where he should have made the play, and the guy just took the ball away from him and ran up the field.
Yeah. Do you have anyone else on your list? I got 2 more names that I got
me. 2 more names from me would be the 2 running backs, Benny LeMay on the east side and James Robinson on the west side. Both went to small schools, Illinois State, NC State, UNC Charlotte. They're both smaller guys, 5'9"-ish, but they go 200, 210 pounds, and they both have some speed. LeMay is more of an inside runner. Robinson has kind of the speed to get outside and break along when he had a 63-yard touchdown run.
See, I mean, I think, we probably ought to keep track of guys like this because I find it hard to believe that the Redskins aren't going to draft a running back at some point in time because they always seem to every single year. It may not be at the top of the draft this year, but somebody like that, one of those 2 guys, is going to be a Redskin, And it's just a matter of figuring out who.
The nature of the game, now you always need to draft a running back every year, just in case.
Yeah. And truth be told, running back and quarterback.
Yeah.
It's just part of the game. To be honest with you, a lot of people. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of people. I'm sorry, but nowadays, when you get set at quarterback, you don't really value the position that much. But eventually, when you can groom these guys and have them, set up and play a particular role, you can like that stuff that they did in Green Bay with Mike Holmgren. That it still can exist. Like you can still move these quarterbacks and sell them.
Become a
Well,
factory,
yeah, I mean, Jamal, it's like, if anybody has forgotten, the best team in the NFL does this on a regular basis. The New England Patriots draft people and trade them.
I was just about to say that.
And the Redskins have had a miserable time finding even back of the draft quarterbacks, by the way. They brought
we found
in
one, and then we screwed that up.
Yes, your buddy Sudfeld.
No, I was thinking Kirk. We found a mid-round quarterback.
Well, I was talking about a back of the draft guy.
Fourth round is kind of back of the draft.
Okay. I mean, if you want. I mean, I'm not talking about Kurt. I was talking about like the Nate Sudfelds and Kevin Hogans of the world.
Fine. Yeah.
So a point is, a guy like Morgan out of the Shrine Bowl, is he going to be the next Joe Montana? No, certainly not. But this is the type of guy who you might see pop up on somebody's draft board as a late round prospect, 6th, 7th round pick, who can come into camp and maybe nail down the third quarterback role, which, by the way, our beloved Redskins desperately need.
Right.
That's the point.
Yeah, if they took him with one of our 7th round picks, I would not be upset.
No. Be a fun little gadget play.
Now, running backs, to address Steve's thing, 2 of the guys the Redskins talked to running back were Rico Dowdy, who had a pretty decent game from South Carolina, and Adrian Killens Jr. from Central Florida.
He popped out to me. He runs.
He has some speed and all, but he needs to work on catching the ball. He drops some easy passes.
But he reminds me a lot of a traditional zone runner. Like he makes good first cuts kind of thing.
He's a tiny guy, though. If he's 5'7", 170 pounds, I'd be surprised.
Well, he's a running back. They can be 5'7".
I was about to make a Rico Suave joke, but I'll pass. What are you waiting on me to make it? No, it's the joke that I was about to make.
Go ahead.
There's no joke. It's over.
I'm about to say, look at Alex trying to put Steve on the spot.
It's almost like we had silence. It's like.
Well, okay, so I have one more guy that stood out to me when I was watching the game, and that was John Hightower from Boise State. He was a wide receiver, kind of like a slot guy. Was doing a lot of your gadget plays, your end around type stuff. And I know the Redskins are desperately always looking for another gadget receiver to put in the slot. So I would not be surprised.
And he's a return guy too. So you can put him in the return game. He can work the slot. He's got speed for the end around. I think he picked up 12 or 14 yards on his end around.
I know it's a new staff and new front office now, but historically the Redskins love these guys. So I would not be surprised if that caught their eye. So that was my last guy I had on my list. Steve, I know you casually watched it. I don't know if you did, Jamal. We never asked you or mentioned to me that we were doing this. So
Saturday, I was probably playing Madden.
Which just as helpful. when it comes to learning football. Then,
no. I actually forgot about it because I brought it up and meant to watch it and completely forgot about it.
Oh, you're not alone.
But the Senior Bowl is on my radar this Saturday. Tell you that much.
Yeah.
So to wrap it up, first of all, Clint, thanks for doing that. I hope you had fun. We certainly appreciate all your efforts to it. And we like to thank the Shrine Bowl for letting us, tag along to their big media day into the game. Certainly we'd like to do it again next year. There's all sorts of good players in these games that can really play in the NFL if just given half a chance. And we'll definitely see some of these guys at the Combine. I mean, some of them told Clint they were going to the Combine. And so we'll see, what happens. One or two of these guys, the Redskins have drafted a few Shrine Bowl guys over the years, and so there will probably be another one, if not this year.
I think about 20 or 30 of these guys get drafted every year at least, if not more. So Clint, thanks very much for going and doing that. And the audio you got, for folks who haven't listened, you got a couple of interviews that we put up on our website and on our podcast platform. So thank you for getting those interviews. They came out great.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and hopefully we get to go back next year.
Next year, we're going to send
hopefully-
your like to the Bahamas Bowl or something on our dime.
As soon as that Manscaped money comes in from those ads,
I already bought a cheeseburger.
Oh, all right. All right, Clint, thanks very much for joining us on the show.
All righty. Talk to you guys later.
Have a
All
good
right.
day.
Bye.
And there he goes. That was Clint, who, if you didn't figure it out, he goes by Known from Tampa in his posts on our website. I don't know why he kind of wanted to go with his alias when he posted, but that's cool. And that's why he went to the Shrine Bowl, because he lives in Tampa. And yeah.
Don't blow the charade. We flew him there first class.
You think anybody bought that?
No.
All right.
Hey, you never know. I wouldn't have said nothing. You might have.
Yeah. So I mean, we talked about it a little. I thought watching the Shrine Bowl was interesting.
It's interesting.
You know, there's 2-3 bowls like this before the draft.
Well, yeah, there's the Shrine Bowl, there's the Senior Bowl, there's the NFLPA has a event too, so it's really those three things. The Shrine Bowl is probably the lesser of them in terms of
meant for the smaller schools and stuff like that.
I mean, clearly the Senior Bowl is the big one, which is going on in Alabama this week. Coming up this week. Right. And Jamal is flying down there first class to go watch
first class. Three bottle maximum of liquor. Give me a couple cups of Henny on the flight. I'll be all right by the time I land.
You won't be able to cover a football game, but
shoot, I'll be much better than what I am.
Steve, I know for a fact Shirley Povich covered every game after a couple bottles of something.
Hey, Alex, you've done this show after a couple bottles of something.
Yeah, of course.
One we couldn't air.
Well,
that's true. That's true.
That wasn't a show. That was just me ranting and then posting it. So
I have done this show on Sunkissed more than once.
Yes, you have.
Oh, here you go. Sunkissed.
All right. Well,
let's move on.
Yes, let's move on. One college bowl game down. Let's move on to some Redskins related matters because quiet week overall for Washington. But there was one story that came out that Steve caught your eye. You want to bring it right here, and that has to do with the Redskins linebacker that so far has never taken a snap for the team, Ruben Foster. Story came out this week that his injury apparently a lot worse than we were led to believe. Because shocker, any foot injury or leg injury that the Redskins have had in the last 10 years is a lot worse than they've led us to believe.
I'm just amazed. Yeah, first of all, Ruben Foster. The idea of Ruben Foster playing is kind of like finding the chupacabra down in Mexico.
Right.
You know, it's evasive. You never can really quite get there. You never really see it, but it's supposedly coming, and you supposedly see it. Look, I'll forget about my disdain for bringing Ruben Foster here in the first place because I'm still not totally happy about that.
Put that aside for this conversation.
Because it doesn't really matter. For those to review. Foster got hurt on the third play from on the third rep from scrimmage on the first day of OTAs. Right. And not only did he get hurt, but he tore his knee to shreds. He tore his ACL, MCL, and LCL.
Right.
I guess we knew that at the time, but in my head, all this time I was thinking just ACL.
He thought it was gonna be like a regular year-long recovery. He'll be fine.
Yeah, but not only did he tear all three ligaments, but the reason why I bring it up now is that the news that came out just earlier this week, or I guess late last week, was that Foster has had nerve problems in his foot, and he just very recently got feeling back in his foot. And what disturbed me most about that is that the quote from his agent was, "We hope that he can do something in training camp."
Right.
That tells me that he's probably not going to do anything in training camp. You know, if an agent is being that negative about it. So, first of all, I mean, I hope the man recovers, definitely. But from a football standpoint, I guess why I want to bring it up is, we're transitioning to the 4-3. You heard Robert Henson, 2 weeks ago on this very show say that Ruben Foster is your classic strong side backer, meaning the Sam. Now, if he's gone, and we don't have a middle linebacker, by the way, starting quality on the team.
We definitely don't have a true middle linebacker.
We don't. Yeah, you could throw somebody out there, certainly. But so now all of a sudden we have a major, major hole at linebacker, and right. I mean, even Cole Holcomb, if he's the will, I mean, I don't know how good he's going to be compared to other starters. Linebacker is all of a sudden a crisis situation. That's really what I want to bring up.
Yeah, and I think it's a good topic to get into.
Yeah, it kind of actually reminds me, this injury reminds me of, and it's not the same. A lot of people try and relate it to Alex Smith, but I think it's kind of similar to Teddy Bridgewater. Now, I think Teddy had a kneecap issue that also dealt with like an ACL and MCL or something like that. I'm not entirely too sure, but the way it sounds, in a sense, it's not like it's a potential career-threatening injury, but it's more extensive than what we thought. Like when Bridgewater got hurt, they were able to diagnose like the type of severity it was almost immediately, but they knew eventually if he wanted to play, he'll get back on the field. And I think this is something similar with Ruben in a sense. So it's not like his career is over, but in the situation that he's in now, he's entering his 4th year. The Redskins will have a 5th-year option to extend him. But will they do it? Will they pay him that much money given the situation that he's in? It's hard to say that they want to do that. And that points back to what Steve said. The linebacker position is pretty thin and needs a lot of help moving forward. It's not as easy or as I can't think of the word.
Jamal has been drinking too. Apparently,
I was trying to say something along the lines. You can't project it as good as you once thought you could.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, so it's definitely in trouble right now. And you don't know how they're going to act moving forward. But Ruben Foster's injury put a dent in a lot of things because he could have been at least the help that we needed at one of the linebacker positions.
Yeah, I mean, without the re-signings that we know are going to probably happen at some point, but they just haven't re-signed anybody yet. Right now, I think you're looking at who? Sean Dean Hamilton is the next guy up?
Sean Dean Hamilton would have to be the middle linebacker.
Yeah, or he might be a middle linebacker. You're right. So it really.
They don't have anybody else, other than him to be a middle linebacker.
Because Clemens is too small for strong side, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And he's more that jack. Card or
which is what Holcomb is too.
Yeah. So it's going to be a problem, and they're going to have to find a couple free agents. You think?
Well, I mean, I'll bring up my weekly "We Can Do Better Than Chase Young" segment. Let's start here. There's a man out there named Isaiah Simmons. You may have heard of him. Played football at Clemson, linebacker, can play a whole bunch of other positions. Considering how thin the Redskins are at linebacker, and by the way, safety also. If you get past Landon Collins, they've got a bunch of Gorick at safety, basically. So, I mean, Isaiah Simmons is a guy who I strongly think the Redskins ought to keep an eye on and see maybe he's the right pick. Maybe he's the right pick at 2.
Well, I can't say that you're wrong. And obviously we know with you saying that there will be a lot of F-bombs coming your way once this podcast is released.
And that makes me happy, Jamal. I mean,
yeah, I bet. But the thing about from now up until the start of the draft is that free agency will take place, and only because I haven't done my own research yet, I will throw out AJ Klein, who's been mentioned a few times by just some people who already did preliminary research. And AJ Klein is a former Carolina linebacker who actually, I think, backed up Luke Kuechly at one point and got his starting role with the Saints. It's not a bad idea. You would have liked to get him a little bit younger because he was really good in his backup, his spot fillings for Luke Kuechly. Don't know how he plays now, but the whole thing is he can help you out for the short term. It's always going to be those couple positions where you have to put a Band-Aid over it before you can fully address it. And that's what the Redskins did for a long time with the defensive line, and they finally addressed it fully over the last couple of years. And then you may just have to do the same thing this season with the linebackers. And even with safety, they put Band-Aids over it, but they got Landon Collins to solidify one position, and then you just got some pieces to work with. And Isaiah Simmons sounds like a good idea, but at 2, if things go well in the free agency, you may just have to deal with that Band-Aid and get Chase Young and deal with the rest later.
Yeah, I mean possibly, and I'm looking at the Draft Network's write up on Simmons, and they mentioned, which I did before, that Simmons, is projected to be decent Mike backer, Sam backer, nickel linebacker, strong safety. I mean, a guy like that is so versatile.
He's just
I
an
just
all-purpose in the box guy.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, it's a much bigger need than defensive end. I mean, I get it that Chase Young's a patron saint of pass rushers. Apparently, I understand that, and I'm not disparaging him. He's outstanding. I've watched a little bit of his film, but I'm just saying, considering the magnitude of the need at linebacker in particular, I'll get to O-line, some other day. I maybe Simmons is the guy. That's all. But in terms of like who's on the roster now, it really is a problem. If you look at my handy dandy roster chart that is on our website, you'll see that the only middle linebackers I have listed are Cole Holcomb and Sean Dan Hamilton. And as we've heard, Holcomb is probably not a middle linebacker.
They're 3-4 middle or inside linebackers. What that makes them in a 4-3 is a very different thing.
Yeah, it was just me guessing as to where they would go, a month ago. So they truly have no one but Sean Dan Hamilton. It is a major problem.
And one thing I've pointed this out before. Historically, the Redskins have never really emphasized middle linebacker when it comes to the draft. They've never drafted one in the first round, which is an amazing little stat over 80-plus years.
It's amazing.
It's probably the leader of the defense. They've never drafted one in the first round.
That's unbelievable. That's a miracle.
Second round, yeah, bunch of them. Not first. Outside guys, yeah, they draft outside guys. But
I mean, to me, this position group is a major problem, even if Ruben Foster was healthy, because as we've all said, Foster hadn't actually played it down,
right?
For the Redskins. I think we'd be fools to really and truly count on him, particularly in light of this injury problem. I mean, they need to bring in multiple free agents and or draft picks. This is not just like one player and fixes the position group problem.
It's something that even if you did draft somebody early, you're probably talking about a 2-year rebuild to really get a good linebacking core here.
Absolutely.
And
I'd like to bring up, by the way, to Jamal's point about the 5th-year option and all that. I mean, the Redskins aren't dumb. I mean, that'd be stupid.
They might make him here's
a bad idea.
Yeah, they might give him like a 2-year extension.
Maybe, yeah.
And say, hey, you've been hurt for 2 years. Play for $3 million or something like that. Prove it kind of deal. But I don't see an option. No.
It will be almost like repeating the it'll be almost like repeating the RG3 thing all over again. Why are you extending him and knowing that you can just save yourself the money?
Right.
Yeah.
Luckily, the guy who did that's not here anymore.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. What can you say? So the point is, we want to bring it up because if you guys missed it,
it's something that you need to be keeping an eye on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is definitely something for us to keep an eye on, and one of the big stories I think this whole season is going to be rebuilding that defense to this new look 4-3. But that's not the only side of the ball that we're kind of going new look on, because people are kind of realizing that the offense is going to be very different looking this year too now, with Turner in as the OC. His father is, of course, one of the Air Coryell prodigies of all time, and apparently the apple didn't fall far from the chip on the tree, or whatever you want to say.
The apple didn't fall far from the chip on the tree.
Yeah, old block.
The apple didn't fall far from the tree, is what I was trying to say.
And chip off the old block. But
you were mixing metaphors.
Yes, I was trying to do that on purpose. It didn't work. But point being, we're going to an Air Coryell offense, very different from West Coast. Not so much in terms of, you're still calling pass plays, but it's different terminology, a lot more deep ball play action, right, Steve?
Let's talk about
go through what
talk
changes
about
we'll
this.
see here.
So the Air Coryell system, traditionally, if you go back all the way back to the beginning under Don Coryell, I mean,
back to the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, originally they were a heavy running team, like almost every team in the 60s. And what Coryell did is he opened up the passing game tremendously, and it's truly the classic use the power run game to set up the deep ball kind of offense.
Right, play action.
That's what at its heart is what Air Coryell is. That doesn't mean that they can't mix and match concepts. That doesn't mean they can't bring back some of Dwayne Haskins' favorite plays or what he ran best from Jay's offense. The terminology is going to change around completely, and he's going to have to learn that. But I think what you're going to see from the Redskins next year based on this is they're going to be a running team. But what you're going to see more downfield passing. Remember, I was always complaining for years that the Redskins never look downfield, and that was because of the West Coast part of it, and that's what Jay does and all that, and it worked, sometimes. But I think we're not going to have a problem again of like a tight end on 3rd and 8 dropping back 5 yards. That's not going to happen under Air Coryell, I don't think.
Right. The idea is get past the first down marker.
It's more than that. I mean, you're going to see a lot more deep ball. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of deep balls. It's going to be a lot of power run to set up the deep ball. I think we'll see a lot more of that than we ever did under Jay.
Well, have either of you had the chance to look at, in particular, what Scott does, Scott Turner, what Scott does in his version of the Air Coryell offense, in particular?
Well, here's the problem, Jamal. It's that he wasn't actually the offensive coordinator more than a month in Carolina. I mean, because you can't really compare the Carolina offense to the Redskins offense because it wasn't his offense. I mean, they were running a completely different system. We talked about the Earhart-Perkins system, all of that. Turner became the offensive coordinator of the Panthers in December, something like, I want to say December 8th. Don't hold me to the date. Mm-hmm. But it was really only the last quarter of the season. And by that time, the Panthers were a mess. I just don't. It's sort of, in my opinion, it's a bit of a blank slate almost, and I don't know if there is a good comp because I don't really know what to look at other than 4 bad Panthers games, at the end of last year. And even then, what were they really running Turner's offense, or were they just trying to limp to the end of the season?
All right, yeah. I mean, I guess that's fair. The only reason why I ask like certain things, well, I'll put it this way. When I heard this week, maybe been today or maybe a couple of days ago, how Kyle Shanahan utilizes the West Coast or the way he wants to. However, his run schemes isn't all dependent on the zone run. It's a mixture of X, Y, Z, like so many different runs, and he's smart enough to, to utilize it the way he needs to, depending on the situation. Like he's not afraid to he's not afraid to get outside of the zone scheme that made him as successful or made his dad as successful as they want to be. The basis of my question is more so understanding how Scott Turner works, and is he married to traditional Air Coryell principles, or is he a person who has shown that he can adapt? But I guess this is what we have Mark on for, who probably already did this and has some answers to it. But can he adapt to what his team does best and what he can do against a particular defense? And I'm not necessarily too sure about that yet, but it's something worth looking into.
It's a great question, but my fear is that the sample size is so small that we don't really know what we're getting. Look, Mark has done it. Our buddy Mark has written this up. It's in the Athletic. But again, the problem is just the sample size. What are they really going to do? I mean, if he's following his father's, if he's taking Norv's playbook, then you're talking about a more traditional system where, again, it's power run, set up the pass. And your point, Jamal, about what Kyle Shanahan does is a very good one, because Mike was a pure zone run all the time guy, whereas Kyle's mixing and matching all kinds of different run schemes,
right?
Which is part of what makes them good. So it just, who knows? I think you can make better use of Terry McLaurin as a deep threat in this offense. Mm-hmm. That's one thing, because he's so good vertically and he's got that speed. And I think we'll see more of that. So there's that. But a big part of it also, to me, is what is the status of this running game? who is the starter? Who's the feature back? Are they bringing back Adrian Peterson?
Mm-hmm.
Darius Geis, can he ever stay healthy? Is he a true franchise back himself? Bryce Love, don't forget about him. He's coming back from his injury. He was a 4-3 guy when he was at his, nadir, his peak. Can he still do that? I don't know. There's so many questions with the run game that I think it's tough to know what Turner's going to do.
Well, and I think a lot of this also, the run game is one thing, and I think an offensive coordinator can come into any team and have a run philosophy and say, I want to do X, Y, Z. Very rarely can they do what Kyle Shanahan does, which is, I'm going to do everything and be effective. Usually when we see people try that, they fail, a la Jay Gruden, who tried everything and was never good at anything.
He had his years. Let's not.
Well, I'm talking about in his run game, just running.
Yeah, true.
His run games always struggled because he wanted to do zone, then power, then some kind of gadget, then another zone, then another power.
And we criticized him for that. On this show.
Of course. But I think generally, if a coordinator comes in and says, "I want to be primarily a power guy," okay, then you build a team around that, and that can work. When it comes to the passing game, and this is where I'm going to be curious to look this year. I think I've always said you need to build your passing game around your quarterback's strengths. And I don't know that we've seen enough of Haskins yet to really know, give me the 10 passes he's best at. What is he truly great at?
Well, I'll tell you what he struggled at a little bit in college was the deep sideline route.
Right.
And
a lot of guys struggle with that. We know that.
Yeah, and it'll get better. But that's certainly a part of, the Coryell offense. But if you think back to Carolina, I guess one thing we can point out about Carolina is who's the biggest name in the Carolina offense outside of Cam Newton? Somebody help me.
McCaffrey.
I was going to say Greg Olsen.
Oh, see, I would say Olsen and Christian McCaffrey, though.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Christian McCaffrey is, all pro. Okay.
Right.
But my point here was that the Panthers made significant use of their tight ends.
Sure.
And one thing the Redskins have absolutely nothing in is tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
Other than Jamal's, boyfriend, Jeremy Sprinkle.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding, guys.
But Steve, that kind of comes back to some of the stuff I'm pointing out. We also know that Haskins, at least in college, didn't use a tight end very much. Like, remember, we were looking at his stats, and his tight end was like the 8th or 9th most frequently targeted guy. And because they ran a spread-based system for the most part.
Yeah, and let me say this, by the way, because I know some folks out there concerned about Haskins learning a new offense. I think it's a
not
point.
Ideal.
It's not ideal. It's a point to watch. But that having been said, he's not learning Russian here, okay? It's still just football. It's just a matter of learning new terminology. A lot of these plays are going to be the same. It's not the end of the world. The fact that Kevin O'Connell left does not mean, democracy fails. It will be fine. Trust me. Now, if it happens over and over and over again, and we have like a Jason Campbell situation, that's another story. But it's fine. The trick I think from here on out is to have consistency going forward. And with a new coach, he's almost certainly going to have that.
Right. And again, Jay had one of the more complicated offenses to learn in terms of play calling. I think that's been established. The West Coast has a lot of verbiage in it in general, and Jay added in some extra to be safe. So we don't know, because even though they're going to Eric Coryell, the whole Earnhardt Perkins thing you talked about, that can run with a Coryell. Like, you can do that either way.
Yeah.
So
true.
maybe they'll stick with that easy play calling system to help him out, or they'll bring that in. I don't know.
Maybe. That's not the way Eric Coryell plays are called, though. The Eric Coryell play calls are use the traditional route tree, where you'll get a call like, twins right motion, then there will be a call for the protection scheme, and then it'll be, 7, 8, 9, which are the routes for the X, the Z, and the slot receiver.
Right.
And then
it's a number-based thing.
Yeah,
right.
Then you'll have the running back call, so it'll be running back motion or something like that. That's not what Earnhardt Perkins is at all. Jamal, we cut you off earlier, though, because we talked too much.
So I was just going to say that I feel like at the end of the day, Haskins is a smart quarterback. So it's going to be on him if he could pick the offense up or not, but it shouldn't be difficult. I think a lot of people make a big deal. Like Steve, you mentioned the Jason Campbell situation. I think a lot of people make a big deal of the fact that, they feared it may turn into a Jason Campbell situation, but like switching coordinators early in your career, at least this once, um, for the foreseeable future, it's really not a big deal. You're going into from one system from another, but the playing experience is what matters now. And eventually, when you like your skill set is going to end up taking over more than anything. I don't think it's going to be the playbook that really confuses him. It's going to be learning how to play the game and learning how to run an offense within run plays within the flow of the offense. So it's like I said, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I think it's just more so overhyped and fans being nervous on playing on the side of caution more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, and as Jamal said, Dwayne is a smart kid, football-wise. He's very smart. Don't forget that. I mean, if you watch him break down plays and stuff when he's been interviewed in the past, he did one with Dan Orlovsky, like during the draft coverage that just blew me away, because he knew every read. He knew exactly what he was supposed to be looking at. He's a very smart guy. In terms of football, at least. So I'm not worried about him picking us up. And hopefully he's going to have a whole summer, a whole off season to be the man, where he goes into training camp as the clear number one. Rivera kind of hemmed and hawed about that a little bit at his introductory press conference. But I hope there's no question whatsoever about that. Just make him the man. You are it. And let him do it. And he's going to have a whole summer to learn the offense, take all the first team reps. I think we'll see a different Dwayne Haskins next year. I really do. And listen, switching coordinators might be for the best, ultimately, because if Scott Turner and Ron Rivera are going to be are going to be it for the foreseeable future, it's better that it happened early. And not like a couple years from now, where they'll struggle along in mediocrity with Jay and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they ripped the Band-Aid off, get him into his new system while he's still young and he can be in it for several years. It may be the best thing.
Yep, I agree. That's how I look at it.
I agree with that overall too. But I stick by my point. I think the great offenses, the coordinator builds it around the quarterback. He doesn't try and fit the quarterback into a hole and say, no, you have to do this, this, and this.
I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll get Mark to come on, and he can go into some detail about what he's seen about whatever there is to see of Scott Turner. We'll get him on in the next couple weeks, whenever he's available to talk about.
That's a good idea. All right, we got a couple minutes left. I know we had the AFC and NFC Championship we wanted to talk about.
Well, first of all, what I have next is I've got a very detailed analysis of the Pro Bowl that I've done. I've gone through and I've done a complete stat package for every player. I wrote 4,000
Even the ones
words.
who aren't going to show up because they don't care?
Yes.
Like Aaron Rodgers?
I wrote 4,000 words complete with charts. Jamal helped me with it. So that's going to be – no, I'm just kidding. Even I'm not that masochistic to do that. Utterly nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. Alex cares about the uniforms. But other than that,
I barely even care about the uniforms for the Pro Bowl at this point. It's
do we have anything to say? I have absolutely nothing to say about the Pro Bowl.
Okay, so I have one thing, and that is before the show, you were giving me some football trivia because we do that before the show.
Oh, yeah.
And you brought up a game that was played in the 60s where before the Super Bowl, the third place and fourth place teams, that is the losers of the AFC and NFC, would play each other in a benefit bowl of some kind.
Hold on, I'm looking through my trivia things.
Are you going to find the name of it?
I threw them on the floor. Yes, just give me I was not prepared for this, Alex.
I don't think the name matters. The point is, I would rather watch that. If you were to tell me next week the Green Bay Packers were going to play the Titans, that would be worth watching.
Okay,
the Pro Bowl is never worth watching.
Green Bay Packers and the Titans.
Would you rather watch out of the Pro Bowl?
Truth be told, that is a very depressing Super Bowl.
So what Alex was talking about is my little sports football trivia count. It's on my desk that we go over while we're waiting. Jamal was not here for this. So the question was, in which decade did the NFL have a playoff bowl between the second-place teams of the East and West? The 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s? I'm assuming you don't know the answer to this, Jamal, because I didn't and Alex didn't.
I mean,
And
I just said it, so
yeah,
if he was paying attention.
So let me hear the question one more time.
Okay. In which decade did the NFL have a playoff bowl between the second place teams of the East and West?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm not even gonna. I thought that was gonna help me hearing it again, but it did not.
Doesn't. But it's the '60s. But apparently this thing was called the Burt Bell Benefit Bowl because they like alliteration.
Right. It was
so
the '60s. Alliteration was a new thing.
The Burt Bell Benefit Bowl.
Yes, and they said it real fast.
Yeah. So there you go. That was the trivia question. We just wasted 90 seconds of your life by having to listen to that.
Right. By the way, I wasn't alive for it, but I've studied a lot of football history. The '60s were like a weird time for football. Like they were playing NFL teams are still playing like rec league teams for fun and stuff like that was going on. Like,
can you imagine a rec league team going up against the Bears?
Well, so you'd have a preseason game where the Redskins played the Richmond Arrows, which was like a division. It would be like playing a Division II program.
It'd be like playing the AFL, Alex. That's what it would be like.
Yeah, it would. They were about the equivalent of the Arena Football League. It was weird back in those days.
Okay, I've had enough of this.
But,
can we go on to the conference championship games?
My
please?
point is, all of that more exciting than the Pro Bowl.
Yes. My trivia question was more exciting than the Pro Bowl.
Right. You'll get more out of it. All right, let's go on to the conference game because I thought that first game was great. The Titans, Chiefs. I really enjoyed that one. So let's talk about that one.
Certainly. I mean, and obviously the trick to the game was the Chiefs limited Derrick Henry.
Right.
I mean, he was the entire Chiefs offense basically. I mean, I know Ryan Tannehill, has got a poster with darts in the face of Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson, but I mean, the fact of the matter is Derrick Henry drove that offense. The Chiefs figured out how to stop it, and they are way too explosive.
Now, did they stop him, or did they? It's kind of crazy because, in my view, in everybody's view, like the guess was that in order for the Titans to win, they would have to keep the Chiefs off the field.
Right.
But
right. What
actually happened was the Chiefs offense kept the Titans offense off the field. Mm-hmm. In a sense, like after that great first quarter for the Titans, you deal with the Chiefs offense who basically took over from that point on, and it got to a point where in the second half the Titans only had the ball one time going into the fourth quarter. Yeah. And so he was averaging. He being Derrick Henry, he was averaging close to like 5 to 6 yards a carry going into the halftime. And like eventually, when you understand like ball control actually goes both ways, not saying you as in us two, Steve, Alex,
yeah,
but just in general, like when ball control goes both ways, like I don't think they really stopped Derrick Henry, but they just took him out of the game plan because eventually when you get down 11 points and you only had the ball once going into the fourth quarter, in the second half, it is what it is, and it became to a point where Ryan Tannehill had to make plays.
Well, Henry finished with 3.6 yards per carry at the end of the game. 19 carries, 69 yards. He did have a higher yards per carry going into the halftime, but he never. I think what we can both probably agree on is that Henry did not have the impact on the game. From like, 100%. And he was what was driving the boat against the Patriots and the Ravens both. So it's, look, I mean, the Chiefs, I didn't expect them to get in the Super Bowl, but I mean, they're no joke. They're explosive, man. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is an outstanding quarterback, far better than I thought he would be. Tyreek Hill is a lousy human being, but he's explosive. They've got a running game. They've got multiple options at the run game. Mahomes had that incredible run, for the touchdown run he had.
That was one of the best
30 yards?
QB scrambles I've seen in a while.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's they're a handful for any team. And I just think at the end of the day, Lady Luck had to run out for the Titans. They're not nearly versatile enough to match up against a team like the Chiefs, when they're running on full cylinders.
The thing that found interesting was 2 games in a row now for the Chiefs. We've kind of seen them have this similar thing. They start out a little slow in that first quarter, and more so versus the Texans even that happened. But they started out a little slow, and then some kind of switch goes off, and Mahomes just gets red hot for about a half of a game. And he had, 5 touchdowns? Is that right? Something like that.
Close to it.
Yeah, something like that.
So, he just goes nuts. And we've seen that twice in a row now. I don't know how anyone stops him when that happens, when he just starts firing on all cylinders like that. It's crazy to see, and he really is impressive as a quarterback. Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. I think a lot of us thought he might be okay, or not even that when he came out. But I
have a thing against Texas Tech air raid quarterbacks, and so I just kind of ignored him and said,
you also like making fun of his voice, so
yeah. I like making fun of him. I like making people feel small.
Yes, yeah, you do enjoy making fun of people. Let's move on and make fun of the Packers, because I don't think they knew they were playing last week, so you knew San Francisco was good, but they made Aaron Rodgers look terrible.
I think the Packers were the weirdest, poorest 3-13 team I've ever seen.
13-3, you mean?
Sorry, yeah, 13-3 team I've ever seen. I didn't think it was a very good year for them. I don't know how they won all those games. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to have studied their season, but I didn't think they were themselves at all. I don't think they were worthy of that kind of record, just in terms of the talent and not the talent, in terms of how they played. It was just a really weird year for them. So I'm not surprised that the 49ers came out and smacked them around. And it wasn't as close as 37-20.
No, that end score, I was like, how did they even get to 20? Really?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think one of the things when you deal with, and people think that Seattle would have been a better matchup, and technically they know them better, so you can argue that it'll be a better matchup, but like that front seven for San Francisco and the offensive line for San Francisco is just something that neither the Packers or the Seahawks can control. And this was just a matter of destiny with them. They were going to dominate either one of those teams that they went up against. And that was just, it's unfortunate that it was an uneventful conference championship week in totality, but like the two teams that went to the Super Bowl deserved it, and they dominated for the most part in their playoff games. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. The only thing that might have been better, if the Ravens had gone against the Chiefs, that would have been the fun, high-octane kind of championship game.
Sure, who won the Chiefs?
If the Ravens had gone against the Chiefs. I think you'd have had a lot of fun watching that one. It was still a fun game in that one, but the NFC really kind of... I can't tell you anybody who I thought could have beaten San Francisco the way they've been playing lately. There's no team in the NFC.
I thought Seattle had a chance. Remember, Seattle did almost beat him.
Yeah,
So I just would never count out Russell Wilson in those situations. Sure. I mean, they got the better of him. The Packers got the better of him this year. But he's the type of guy who you always have a chance when you have Russell Wilson. Yeah. It's a shame a certain team from a certain nation's capital didn't draft him instead of wasting a first round pick on another guy who's a running quarterback. But let's not relive that nightmare.
No. Why would you ever draft a guy who's local, Steve, who played at Richmond or wherever he played? And never happens. Overall, what would you guys grade those two games? I always find NFC AFC championships more entertaining than the Super Bowl.
I mean, in terms of grade them in terms of entertainment value.
Let's wrap up and just give these things a grade and kind of call it a night.
I mean, a D. They weren't that entertaining game. They were a boring game. Yeah, I mean, there was no drama. The drama was over, quickly in both of them. Once the Chiefs kind of got settled, the AFC game was over, and the NFC game never was. So
it never started.
Yeah,
practically.
Yeah,
Jamal. Yeah, I don't. It was okay. I'll be fair. We're doing letter grades or
letter grade for both games.
I would say a C. I would say a C for the Niners game And then I would say like a C+ for the Chiefs game, because it was entertaining, at least in the first half, and then it just went downhill. So a C+.
Yeah, and I think you're being a little generous with the Niners. Game.
I do think that the Super Bowl is going to be worth it, though.
This might make for a better Super Bowl matchup because you have a high-powered offense and a good defense on one side, and then I think both teams' weaknesses would be the 49ers offense and the Chiefs defense. So
we'll have our Super Bowl spectacular episode next week to go over that.
We're not doing a spectacular; it's just a normal show.
Oh, okay. Never mind. We'll have
with our Pro Bowl recaps, of course.
Yeah. I'm gonna write a 4,000-word Pro Bowl recap, so look for that next week.
Right. Can we send somebody to the Senior Bowl? I don't know.
We probably can. It's in Alabama. Do we know anybody?
Do we have anybody in Alabama who wants to go?
Speak up.
Right.
Email
First,
us.
I'm sorry you're in Alabama, but
hey, it's a nice place, man. There's some nice beaches in Alabama. Believe it or not.
It's the northern part that I'm just like, what's going on?
It worries me a little bit, to be honest. The northern part, yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, let's play some guitar and some banjo and get on out of here.
Hey, but real quick, Jay Gruden, congrats being hired. He's the Jags OC.
Oh,
just found out during it, bro. The news broke during the show that we were.
Oh, well, I guess you know what? He's a Florida guy, so it makes sense. He should stay in Florida, go to the Jags, go to the Dolphins, go to the Bucks. He can finish up his career like that.
There you go.
All right, so congrats, Jay Gruden, on finding a job. And with that, we thank you guys for listening. I want to thank Clint for coming on and talking to us about the Shrine Bowl that he got to go to, because it really was a cool thing that we got somebody in there. And hopefully we can start doing this with some of these other, events in the future. With that, thanks everybody for listening and have a great night.
Cut.
Are you a purple and orange bleeding, Maryland flag boasting Baltimore sports fan looking for a podcast that delivers an hour of content every week?
Then you need to subscribe to Charm City Birdwatch, presented by the Big Heads Media Podcast Network.
You'll hear insight on the Ravens, Orioles, and Terps from Jake McDonald, Nolan McGraw, and myself, Ian Schultz.
With takes coming from both fans and young names in the Baltimore sports media conglomerate, Charm City Birdwatch is the perfect place to catch up on Baltimore sports talk. Subscribe today.